I, 29M, have a sister Emma, 26F, who has always been my parents' favorite child. This isn't just my perception, it's a fact acknowledged by everyone except my parents, 54M, 52F. I need to give you some background to understand why I'm so angry about their recent demands. From the moment Emma was born, I became invisible in our house. Before her, I was the center of my parents' world. After her, I barely existed unless they needed someone to blame for something. Every milestone, every achievement of mine was overshadowed by whatever minor thing Emma was doing at the moment. When I was 10, I won the state science fair. My parents didn't come because Emma had a dance recital. I got a trophy and recognition at school, but at home, all they talked about was how Emma got to be in the third row of dancers. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. If Emma wanted something, she got it immediately. Dance lessons? Done. Horse riding? Done. Piano lessons? Done. When she got bored after 3 months and wanted to quit? No problem. But when I asked to join the robotics club at school, which cost way less than any of her activities, I was told we couldn't afford it. I had to mow lawns all summer to pay the $200 fee myself. I started working part-time jobs when I was 16 just to buy basic things for myself. Meanwhile, Emma got a new phone every year, designer clothes, and whatever else she wanted. My parents always justified it by saying she needed these things for her social development. What about my development? Apparently, that wasn't important. But the worst betrayal came when I was 18 and ready to go to college. Throughout my childhood, my parents always talked about the college fund they had for each of us. They used it to motivate me: study hard, get good grades, and you'll go to a good college. Well, I did my part. I graduated as valedictorian, got accepted into several top universities, and was ready to start my future. That's when they dropped the bomb. My parents sat me down and told me there was no money left for my education because they had to use it for family emergencies. I was devastated but initially understood, emergencies happen, right? But something felt off about their explanation, so I asked my aunt, mom's sister, about these emergencies. The truth made me sick. These emergencies were actually Emma's shopping trips to Paris and Milan. My college fund, which had around $80,000 in it, was spent over 4 years on her shopping sprees, a fancy Sweet 16 party that cost $30,000, and various other essential expenses for Emma. When I confronted my parents, they justified it by saying Emma needed these experiences for her personal growth and that I was smart enough to figure out college on my own. I had no choice but to take out massive loans and work multiple jobs to put myself through college. I worked as a janitor in the mornings, attended classes during the day, and worked at a convenience store at night. I barely slept for 4 years. My grades suffered because I was constantly exhausted, but I managed to graduate with a degree in computer science. 3 months before my graduation, Emma got engaged to her high school sweetheart, William, 27M, and decided to have her wedding the same weekend as my graduation. Instead of trying to attend both events or talking to Emma about changing the date, my parents simply told me they couldn't come because Emma's wedding is more important. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Let that sink in. My sister deliberately chose my graduation weekend for her wedding, and my parents didn't even try to work something out. They could have attended my graduation in the morning and her rehearsal dinner in the evening. But they didn't even consider it. They just expected me to understand that, once again, Emma's wants trumped my achievements. After graduation, I moved across the country and limited contact with them. I built a successful career in tech, paid off my loans, which took 5 years of living like a monk, and met my wonderful wife Irene, 28F. We got married last year in a small ceremony. I didn't invite my parents or Emma. My aunt and uncle, who had always supported me and even helped me with some college expenses, were there. Now, karma has finally caught up. Emma's perfect marriage is falling apart because William is divorcing her. They claim it's because she can't have kids, something about fertility issues, but knowing Emma, there's probably more to the story. My parents called me yesterday, crying about how Emma is devastated and needs financial help because William cleaned out their joint account before leaving. They want me to help her get back on her feet. I laughed and hung up. Now my phone is blowing up with messages from relatives saying I'm being cruel and need to help my sister in her time of need. My parents are saying I'm being petty about ancient history and need to be there for family. Some cousins are posting on social media about how I've changed and become heartless. The thing is, I don't feel bad at all. I struggled for years because they gave my money to her. I lived on ramen noodles and worked until I was exhausted while she was shopping in Europe with my college fund. Now she needs help and suddenly I'm family? Where was this family spirit when I was working 3 jobs to pay for my education? Where was it when I had to choose between buying textbooks or eating lunch? My wife supports my decision but says I should at least hear them out for the sake of getting closure. But I have my closure. I succeeded despite their best efforts to hold me back. Ida for refusing to help? Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone for their support on my last post. The responses were overwhelming, and many of you shared similar stories that made me feel less alone. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and it's gotten even messier than I imagined. After my post went viral, my aunt, mom's sister, reached out to me. She'd been carrying guilt about something for years and decided it was finally time to tell me the whole truth. We met for coffee, and what she revealed made my blood boil all over again. Remember how my parents used my college fund for Emma's shopping trips and sweet 16 party? Well, that wasn't even half of it. The real story is much worse. During Emma's college years, she had this idea that she was going to be some big entrepreneur. She started 3 different businesses, each one failing more spectacularly than the last. Her first venture was a boutique selling curated vintage fashion, basically overpriced second-hand clothes she bought from thrift stores. She convinced my parents to invest $25,000 from my college fund to rent a space and buy inventory. The store lasted 4 months before closing because she spent more time shopping for herself than running the business. The second failure was a makeup line she called Emma's Essentials. She claimed she had contacts in the industry, she didn't, and could start the next big beauty brand. Another $20,000 from my fund went into that brilliant idea. The products were cheap knockoffs from China that caused allergic reactions in several customers. They had to recall everything and pay for medical bills. But the third venture takes the cake. She started a lifestyle blog and brand called Living Like Emma. Yes, really. She convinced my parents she needed another $15,000 for professional photos, a website, and brand development. She spent most of that money on clothes and props for her Instagram photos. The blog got less than 100 followers before she abandoned it. All of this happened while I was working myself to exhaustion trying to pay for college. Every time one of her businesses failed, my parents covered her losses with more money from my fund. My aunt showed me the bank statements. They even took out loans against their house to cover some of Emma's debts after my fund was empty. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Remember William, who's supposedly divorcing Emma because she can't have kids? That was a complete lie. My aunt revealed that William actually left because he discovered Emma had been stealing money from his family's business where she worked as an accountant. Apparently, Emma had been embezzling funds for over 2 years to cover her shopping addiction and remaining debt from her failed businesses. She thought she could replace the money before anyone noticed, but an external audit caught the discrepancies. William's family has solid proof of her stealing nearly $100,000, but they chose not to press charges to avoid a scandal that would hurt their business reputation. Emma didn't just lose her marriage, she lost her job, her in-laws' respect, and her reputation in their social circle. She's now living with our parents, who are once again trying to shield her from the consequences of her actions. Yesterday, things escalated even further. Emma somehow found out where I work, probably through a relative, and showed up at my office unannounced. She was wearing designer clothes and carrying a new Louis Vuitton bag. Apparently she's still shopping, crying about how everyone had abandoned her and how she needed her big brother's help. When I refused to leave my meeting to talk to her, she completely lost it. She started screaming in the lobby about how I was abandoning family and how I owed her because she made me stronger by struggling through college. Security had to physically escort her out while she was yelling that I was dead to her. Real mature. My parents called within an hour to berate me for humiliating Emma. According to them, I should have at least heard her out because she's going through a hard time. Then they dropped another bomb. They're struggling financially because they've been paying off Emma's credit card debt for years. She has over $50,000 in credit card debt spread across multiple cards. Here's the kicker, they tried to guilt trip me by saying they might have to sell their house to help Emma, and it would be my fault for not helping my sister. I told them they made their choice years ago when they stole my future to fund hers, and they can deal with the consequences now. The family is now completely divided. My mom's side is mostly backing Emma, saying she's troubled and needs family support. My dad's side is split, some think I'm right to maintain boundaries, others think I'm being cruel to my little sister who made mistakes. A few cousins who initially sided with Emma changed their minds after seeing her meltdown at my office. My wife is furious about Emma showing up at my workplace and suggests we move and change our numbers because Emma keeps finding ways to contact us. She's been making fake social media accounts to message me and even tried to contact my wife's family to get to me. I've already informed my company's security about the situation and shown them Emma's picture. They've added her to a list of people not allowed in the building. I'm also documenting everything in case we need a restraining order. Emma's latest message claims she's going to expose me for being an abusive brother who never protected her. I actually laughed at that one. I have bank statements showing how she stole my future, but sure, I'm the abusive one. I'll update again if anything significant happens, but for now, I'm focusing on protecting my family from Emma's chaos. Update 2: the situation has completely exploded since my last update. Remember how I mentioned William's family had proof of Emma's embezzlement? Well, I now have the full story, and it's way worse than anyone imagined. My cousin David, who works in accounting at William's family business, reached out to me last week. He'd been going through their financial records for the upcoming audit and found something disturbing. Emma didn't just steal from the business accounts, she also drained William's grandmother's retirement fund. David sent me copies of all the documentation. Over 2 years, Emma had been systematically transferring money from various accounts, including a special trust fund set up for William's grandmother's medical care. The total amount stolen was around $87,000, almost exactly what my college fund was worth. The irony isn't lost on me. But it gets worse. Emma had been doctoring the financial reports to hide the transfers, making it look like the money was going to legitimate business expenses. She even created fake invoices from vendors. The only reason they caught her was because William's grandmother needed emergency surgery, and they discovered her medical fund was empty. When I confronted my parents with this information, they broke down. Turns out they knew about Emma stealing all along. William had come to them 6 months ago with proof, hoping they could talk sense into Emma. Instead, they borrowed $30,000 from their retirement savings to repay part of what she stole, promising to pay back the rest. They admitted they'd been secretly selling their possessions to cover Emma's debts. Dad sold his classic car collection, and Mom pawned her jewelry. They even took out a second mortgage on their house. All to protect their precious Emma from facing consequences. Yesterday, everything came to a head. Emma showed up at my house at 2 a.m., completely drunk. She started throwing rocks at our windows and screaming about how I ruined her life by spreading lies about her. One rock almost hit my wife, who was closing the blinds. We called the police, and when they arrived, Emma tried to run. They caught her trying to get into her car, while drunk, and arrested her for disturbing the peace and attempted DUI. When they searched her purse, they found something interesting: 6 credit cards in our parents' names that they knew nothing about. Turns out Emma had been stealing our parents' mail and opening credit cards in their names. She maxed out all of them, racking up over $40,000 in fraudulent charges. The police found high-end clothing receipts, hotel bills, and spa charges, all while she was supposedly struggling and needed family help. My parents are now begging me to drop the charges. According to them, a criminal record would ruin Emma's future. They're threatening to disown me if I don't help get the charges dropped. I told them they basically disowned me years ago when they chose her over me, so their threat means nothing. William's family is finally pressing charges for the embezzlement too. They were willing to keep quiet when they thought it was just company money, but stealing from an elderly woman's medical fund crossed a line. Emma's looking at serious charges now. The family is in chaos. My parents are facing bankruptcy because of Emma's identity theft. They're trying to play the victim now, saying they never knew their daughter could do something like this. But their text messages, which David found on the company phone they gave Emma, prove they knew about her stealing for months. Some karma, the expensive Louis Vuitton bag Emma was carrying during her office meltdown? Bought with a credit card she opened in our mom's name. She used our parents' stolen credit cards to maintain her image of success while crying about being abandoned. Emma's now calling me from jail, alternating between threats and begging. She claims she'll tell people I abused her as a child if I don't help her. I've saved all these messages for the police. My lawyer says her threats will only make things worse for her case. The most shocking part? Some relatives are still defending her. They're saying she has a shopping addiction and needs help, not punishment. These are the same people who said nothing when my parents stole my college fund. Apparently, stealing from family only matters when Emma's the victim. I've hired a lawyer to protect myself and my wife. We're pressing charges for the vandalism and harassment. Emma made her choices, and now she can face the consequences without me softening the blow. Update 3: This will be my final update. Everything has finally come to a head, and I need to close this chapter of my life. Emma's legal troubles have gotten worse. The prosecution found evidence of more stolen money. Apparently, she didn't just steal from William's family business and our parents. She also embezzled money from her previous job and 2 charities where she volunteered as a treasurer. The total amount stolen is now over $200,000. She tried to plead not guilty at first, but with the mountain of evidence, her lawyer advised her to take a plea deal. She's facing 5 to 7 years in prison for multiple counts of embezzlement, credit card fraud, and identity theft. William's family pushed for the maximum sentence after discovering she'd stolen money meant for their employee pension fund too. My parents lost everything trying to cover Emma's tracks. They had to sell their house and most of their possessions to repay some of her victims. They're now living in a small 1-bedroom apartment and still have over $100,000 in debt from all the credit cards Emma opened in their names. Here's where it gets interesting. They showed up at my house last week with suitcases, claiming they needed to move in with me because they're still my parents despite everything. They didn't even ask, just expected me to take them in. When I refused, my mom actually tried to guilt-trip me by saying they wouldn't be in this situation if I had helped Emma earlier. I told them to ask their golden child for help. Oh wait, she's going to prison. My dad started crying about how they're too old to start over, and mom said I'm killing them by refusing to help. I reminded them about all the times they watched me struggle and did nothing. They left when I threatened to call the police. The best part? They're still defending Emma. According to them, she just made some bad choices and needs family support now more than ever. They're trying to organize the family to help pay for her legal fees. Some relatives actually contributed money, the same ones who knew about my college fund and did nothing. My wife is due in 3 months, and we're not taking any chances. We've sold our house and are moving to another state where I got a better job offer. We've changed our numbers, emails, and all social media. Only my aunt and uncle, the ones who helped me through college, know where we're going. Emma tried one last manipulation tactic from jail. She sent a letter claiming she's pregnant with William's baby and needs family support. A quick check with William's lawyer confirmed it's a lie. She can't have children due to a medical condition she's had since her teens. She knew this before marrying William but hid it from him. Some relatives are still trying to guilt me about abandoning family in their time of need. They say I'm being cruel by moving away when my parents are elderly and struggling. These are the same people who watched me work 3 jobs to pay for college and said nothing about my parents' treatment. My aunt, mom's sister, finally revealed why my parents favored Emma so much. Apparently, she was their miracle baby after they were told they couldn't have more children. They were so grateful to have her that they spoiled her completely. My aunt says she regrets not speaking up sooner about how toxic their favoritism was. I've gone fully no contact with everyone except my aunt and uncle. I won't let my child grow up watching their grandparents favor other kids over them. My wife and I are focused on building a better future, free from my family's toxic dynamics. Some days I feel a tiny bit guilty, but then I remember all the nights I went hungry in college while Emma was shopping in Paris with my money. They made their choices for 29 years. Now they can live with the consequences.